Warm greetings from the high 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans, and thank you for joining me on this balmy, hot day in the high 10, hump day, Wednesday. Hope you all are well, staying cool. Very, very warm here in the Knoxville, Tennessee area. Very, very warm. Hope you all staying cool. This update is pertaining to the Champlain Tower South in Surfside, Florida. The collapse updates, death toll now at 16, and also part 2 of this video will be pertaining to ABC Good Morning America's Michael Strahan's ex-wife, her woes. She's having some legal troubles with a woman she had been seeing, order of protection. I'm going to bring you an update to that. Not much of an update, but it basically gives you the rundown on the relationship between the two as far as the custody. I have verification now of the custody situation between the two parents. And later, please stay tuned. I will be going early live tonight pertaining to the release of Bill Cosby. Yes, everybody, Bill Cosby is a free man. He's at home, possibly being chauffeured around at home because from the looks of it, homeboy can't see very well. Yeah, I said that. Yeah, Queen said that. And I will be playing you audio from a YouTube video pertaining to what was said outside the home with his dream team. Oh, it's a nice I don't know what the words I want to use, but anyway, they were very animated. The lady who was speaking on behalf of Mr. Bill Cosby, too animated for the Queen, very theatrical. But anyway, I'll get into that later, so please join me. I will drop the link. I want to hear your honest opinion of what transpired today in America pertaining to the Supreme Court overturning that ruling. I want to hear your voice. I don't want to duck around the subject later. So please have your questions, answers, whatever ready, because we're going to go ham on this situation later. Thank you all so much for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. If you want to donate to the channel, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Here we go. As most of you know, a horrific event took place in Surfside, Florida last week with the collapse of Champlain Tower South. Many people are still unaccounted for in this complex that is no longer. I will bring you this information. I will also bring you other sources pertaining to Champlain Tower South. And if you need verification, there will be a source for each information. Thank you all so much for joining me. Okay, Washington Post is the first source. The death toll in Florida condominium collapse rose to 16 on Wednesday as responders recovered more bodies from the wreckage. The remaining 4 people were pulled from the rubble, said Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava. The grim news came as rescuers entered the 7th day of searching through debris after the Champlain Tower South collapsed in Surfside, Florida last Thursday. The mayor said 147 people are still missing. Officials continue to express hope, and one rescuer said earlier in the day that new openings within the debris have been detected. Amen. Rest assured, those folks are going to be working on that pile, and it's not going to stop. And they're going to get answers one way or another, Governor Ron DeSantis, Republican, said during a news conference. Here are some significant developments. Miami-Dade Police Department on Wednesday morning released the name of a collapsed victim, 92-year-old Hilda Noriega. President Biden and First Lady will visit the site of the collapse Thursday. A Washington Post examination of video and images, as well as interviews with structural engineers, a key witness, and an investigator, deepened questions about the potential role of damage to a deck in the pool area. Months before the collapse, the condo board leader warned that damage to the structure's concrete support system was accelerating. Florida State Fire Marshal will ask Biden for PTSD support for the Surfside responders. Florida State Fire Marshal Jimmy Petronas announced Wednesday that he will request mental health assistance for the responders searching through the debris of the condominium building. We're planning on appealing the POTUS for the best PTSD support possible for the men and women who are working in the conditions that resemble more of a war zone than a normal search and rescue mission, he tweeted. Petronas, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, has repeatedly mentioned his concerns about the mental health of the crews working long hours and witnessing the horror of the collapse up close while potentially endangering themselves. In an interview with News Nation Now on Tuesday, Petronas cried while talking about the crews, which he said are wearing down boots and gloves that normally last 6 months. The teams are dedicated, exhausted, but eager to get back to work as they continue searching for the survivors as long as it takes, he told the outlet. Petronas said Wednesday that mental health experts have already been deployed to assist responders, but that he wants workers to have access to the nation's best mental health experts. It will go a long way in helping these officials cope with some of the horrible things they are having to see and deal with, he said. U.S. Postal Service safeguarding mail and packages of residents at the collapsed condo tower. The U.S. Postal Service will safeguard mail and packages destined for residents who live at the Champlain Tower South condominium. The USPS South Florida District spokeswoman Deborah J. Federley said in a statement that all mail and packages will be secured and kept safe at a nearby post office. We serve each and every community in the United States, and our employees grieve along with the residential and business customers with which we do business every day, Federley said. The death toll in the Surfside, Florida condominium collapse rose to 16 on Wednesday, with rescuers pulling 4 more bodies from the wreckage. In addition to the mail, other belongings pertaining to those who lived in the building at the time of the collapse have also surfaced in recent days. Neighbors and relatives have found mementos such as cards, photographs, belongings to the missing in the surrounding area after the collapse. Florida officials are preparing contingency plans for storm response amid continued rescue efforts. Florida's local leaders and emergency management officials are making contingency plans for severe weather as meteorologists track 2 disturbances in the Atlantic. This is hurricane season. There's assets here that could be used in future disasters as those come. The state government's monitoring all storms that are happening. DeSantis said Wednesday will take whatever steps are necessary to make sure that we would be able to respond. Levine Cava, the Miami-Dade County mayor, said officials are monitoring 2 weather systems in abundance of caution. It is still too early to know whether there will be an impact for South Florida, according to the National Weather Service. Kevin Guthrie, director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management, said the agency is working with the Miami-Dade County Emergency Management to develop contingency plans for severe weather, including tropical cyclones. Guthrie said the division requested a federal team to relieve state officials aiding efforts in Surfside to free up assets that will be able to help with any storm response. If a storm does develop, I want to assure you we have contingency plans, which include facility relocation, communications, backup plans of how we will continue to respond here while responding to a hurricane, he said. DeSantis added, "'Tis the season, and you've got to be ready." Police official Biden's visit will bring some unity here for our community. Ahead of President Biden's visit to Surfside on Thursday, officials were asked about the logistics of the visit would affect operations on the ground. The logistics of the visit would affect operations on the ground. Alfredo Freddy Ramirez III, director of the Miami-Dade Police Department, said local authorities are very grateful the president is coming. We assure you we have plans in place with the Secret Service and our federal partners with this operation will continue. Ramirez said at a news conference on Wednesday in response to a reporter's question, "We have been resilient. We had several challenges from weather, sorrow, pain, and I think the president coming will bring some unity here for our community." Ramirez said the visit will be a great message for the families. Amen. I do concur. We're going to get it done. That's not going to be a problem, he said. First Lady Jill Biden will accompany the president during the visit. The White House announced this week. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the Bidens want to thank the heroic first responders, search and rescue teams, and everyone who has been working tirelessly around the clock and meet with the families who have been forced to endure this terrible tragedy, waiting in anguish and heartbreak for word of their loved ones to offer them comfort as search and rescue efforts continue. Surfside Mayor, inclement weather not deterring search dogs. Surfside Mayor Charles Burkett said strong winds and inclement weather have not deterred search dogs, a concern expressed by family members waiting to hear about missing loved ones, he said at a Wednesday news conference. Burkett said that he has visited with several dog handlers to relay the families' questions and that the handlers confirmed that the dogs are active and undeterred by the strong winds that have been hitting the search site. Handlers told him that search dogs, through practice and training, are able to pick up scents from great distances. We have 2 sets of dogs there, he said. We have dogs that are looking for people who are alive and have dogs that are looking for people who have passed on, and they rotate those dogs in and out. Numerous dogs have been spotted with handlers at the site trying to detect human scent. A company rescues operating heavy machinery and advanced technology in the quest to find survivors. Dogs are also helpful in disasters because they can crawl into confined spaces. Death toll rises to 16 as search for survivors continues. 4 more victims have been recovered from the building's rubble, Levine Cava announced Wednesday. Total of 16 people have been confirmed dead in the collapse. Levine Cava told 12 next of kin notifications have been made, and 4 families are still waiting to hear. She said that as of Wednesday, which is today. 147 people are still missing. She stressed again that the numbers are fluid and will continue to change. Officials said rescuers would continue the search efforts. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Rest assured, those folks are going to be working on that POW, and it's not going to stop, and they're going to get answers one way or the other, DeSantis said during a news conference. Earlier Wednesday, a rescue member leading the Israel Defense Forces team helping the Surfside describe passable gaps that crews discover in the debris pile that will aid rescuers as they continue to search for victims. This is a very complicated professional effort. Support the building, secure the responders, and try to open spaces, Colonel Golan Vox said in an interview on CNN. This time it was between the balconies. The balconies between them remains a big space of air that we crawled in those tunnels. Lord have mercy. Police identify another victim in condo collapse. As rescue efforts continue, authorities identified a 12th confirmed victim in the condo collapse. On Wednesday morning, the Miami-Dade police released the name of Hilda Noriega, the 92-year-old mother of North Bay Village Police Chief Carlos Noriega has been described by relatives as the family's matriarch. The city of North Bay Village in Florida shared a statement on behalf of the Noriega family. The family would like to thank all of the hundreds of first responders who bravely and selflessly risked their lives to locate his mother and other innocent victims found to date, the family said. The Noriegas have lost the heart and soul and matriarch of their family, but will get through this time by embracing the unconditional love Hilda was known for. Authorities have now identified all 12 victims who have been confirmed so far in the Champlain Towers South collapse. Okay. Now, I'm going to try to skim over some of this. One issue in here is about the Israeli rescue leader. Crews have found spaces in the rubble, which I've already mentioned that to you. So they've been able to crawl through some spaces and that were big enough, for them to crawl through. And these tunnels they found now were almost the first two to be big enough to enable people to stay between them. So let's pray for those people going in between those spaces. They're now saying firefighters are trying to reunite condo tenants with the pets they left behind. So see, there's all types of issues that can go on in this type of disaster because, even alive, you don't stop. Life doesn't stop because you've been in a terrible situation. As you see in this article, they've mentioned the U.S. Postal Service is holding their mail. And then now there's the issue of people finding their belongings scattered about. Now the issue is pets who, Lord have mercy. Of course, naturally, I didn't think about the pets, but there were pets left behind. A firefighter stood inside a cherry picker Tuesday carrying a bowl of water and bags of cat food as the machine elevated him to the balcony of Champlain Tower South Apartment 405. Coco, Coco, he yelled over and over as he shook the bags of food. The black and white cat has not been seen since her owners were rescued Thursday, less than an hour after the South Tower of the Surfside, Florida condominium crumbled, killing at least 12, said Miami City Commissioner Ken Russell, who was present at the rescue scene Tuesday. Fire chief's instructions were clear before Coco's rescue attempt began. The firefighter could not set foot on the balcony nor go inside the apartment. The structure is still not deemed safe, but he could shout Coco's name in hopes that the green-eyed cat would walk out on the balcony door that was usually left open so she could roll in and out of the apartment, Russell said. Tuesday's efforts to rescue Coco, which were handled by a separate team from the one digging through mounds of debris during a continued search for the 149 people still unaccounted for. Comet's family members await news on their loved ones nearly a week after part of the condo unexpectedly collapsed overnight. Video images and interviews deepens questions about role of pool deck in collapse. A Washington Post examination of video and images from the deadly collapse of a high-rise building outside Miami, along with interviews with structural engineers, key witness and investigator, deepened questions about whether existing damage to a deck in the pool area contributed to the disaster. A resident told the Post that minutes before Champlain Tower South and Surfside came down, she noticed a section of the pool deck and a street-level parking area had collapsed into the parking garage below. The husband of another resident has said his wife, who has not been seen since the disaster, made a similar observation in a telephone call shortly before the collapse. An engineer in 2018 found major structural damage in the pool deck area caused by what he said was a flaw that limited water damage. At least 12 were killed. 149 remain unaccounted for following a type of disaster that has been unheard of in the United States. There's a possibility that part of the pool area came down first and then dragged the middle of the building with it. And that made that collapse, said Alan E. Kilsheimer, a veteran engineer hired by Surfside to investigate the collapse, who had previously voiced skepticism about the significance of the damage noted in the engineer's report. And then once the middle of the building collapsed, number 2, then the rest of the building didn't know how to stand up and it fell down. Also, number 3. Condo collapse survivor recounts escape in lawsuit. And of course, you should know that was coming next. That people surviving relatives of missing and deceased would file a lawsuit against the owners of the Champlain Towers South and any subsidiaries involved. When violent tremors shook Raisa Rodriguez out of bed, she wasn't sure what to think. It was the middle of the night and the power was out. When she opened the doors to her balcony, all she could see was dust. Rodriguez, who lived Unit 907 of Champlain Towers South condominium since 2004 and had nearly paid off her mortgage, detailed her escape from the building as part of a lawsuit filed on Monday against its condo association. Rodriguez grabbed her cell phone and called a neighbor, then her brother, but there was no response. Running out to the hallway, she could see more of the damage and destruction. A concrete column had crashed through the ceiling and the elevator shafts were exposed. I knocked on several neighbors' doors, no answer. I run to the exit, opened the doors, and lead to the outside stairwell and saw the devastation, Rodriguez wrote. The beach side of Champlain had collapsed, pancaked. I screamed in horror. The lawsuit is the third that has been filed in Miami-Dade Circuit Court since the sudden and devastating collapse that has so far left 12 people confirmed dead and 149 still missing. Okay. What you need to know, and you can go into the said article by the Washington Post and click on each link to bring you the said information pertaining to Tower South falling. 149 still missing. Video, images, and interviews deepen questions about the role of the pool deck. Months before the building collapsed, a condo board president warned of damage. That record of that letter is on file if you need verification in one of my previous articles. Champlain Towers parking garage flooded often before collapse, residents and ex-workers say. And that is the maintenance manager, who is no longer a maintenance manager, said that the bottom basement garage would fill up with water, salt water, 2 feet of water. So imagine living in a building every day and it's filling up with water every month. You continue to stay there, live there, rent there, also pay a mortgage there. Why would you do that? The contributing articles to this article: Reese DeBalt, Letitia Beecham, and Paulina Feroci. You need verification for the said information that the Queen has brought you pertaining to this devastating event in Surfside, Florida. There's so much to read, and most of you don't read because we know this from being on this network. I bring you the said information to keep you informed of what's going on in America. The first was by the Washington Post. The second is CNN. Basically, the building shook. Unreal what I'm saying. Shaking all the time. Surfside condo owners complained of luxury tower being built next door. Now imagine that. Another building is what? Up. So imagine living there. Although newer construction, better materials, but nonetheless, you're still on, as we say in the street, shaky ground. Amen. CNN is the source. 2.5 years before her building collapsed in a pile of rubble, Champlain Tower South resident Mara Coelho dashed off the latest in a string of angry complaints about the development project next door. We are concerned that the construction next to Surfside is too close, Coelho, a board member of the Condo Association, wrote in a January 2019 email to a building official in her Florida town. Workers were digging too close to our property, and we have concerns regarding the structure of our building, she wrote, attaching photos of construction equipment directly across from her building's property wall. Just 28 minutes later, the official Rosendo Prieto responded that there's nothing for me to check. The reason why the offending development and ultra luxury tower known as 87 Park was directly across the border separating the town of Surfside from the city of Miami Beach, which runs between the two buildings. In the wake of the Champlain Tower South disaster, 87 Park is facing new scrutiny. Champlain residents had complained that construction on the neighboring building would regularly cause their units to shake, according to friends and family members of the condo owners, as well as emails released by the town. When you go into the said article, you will see the said high-rise building, which stands taller than Champlain South. Much taller. So I don't have to say what you're thinking. You do the math. The bigger they stand, you know the old saying, the harder they fall. There's no evidence that the construction of 87 Park, which took place between 16 and 19, contributed to the collapse. We are confident that the construction of 87 Park did not cause or contribute to the collapse that took place in Surfside, the development group behind 87 Park said in a statement to CNN Tuesday. But the 18-story tower would not have been allowed to be built across the border in Surfside, where buildings are subject to a 12-story height limit, although Champlain Towers itself received an exemption in the 1980s to add 9 extra feet, the Wall Street Journal reported Monday. That height limit doesn't apply in Miami Beach. The new tower looms over its now ruined neighbor, its sleek glass curves contrasting with the workmanlike stucco and concrete balconies of the section of Champlain South that's still standing. Maggie Ramsey told CNN her mother, Magali Delgado, who was among the unaccounted for Champlain residents, had been concerned about the work being done next door. She did complain of a lot of tremors and things that were being done to the other building, that she sometimes was concerned what may be happening to her building that might be putting it at risk, Ramsey said. The new tower was designed by renowned architect Renzo Piano and billed as the Starkitect, first residential project in the Western Hemisphere. Its units are selling for millions of dollars, far more than most of those in Champlain South, and an outlier in what has historically been a more middle-class neighborhood of Miami Beach. 87 Park's owners have included the world's top-ranked tennis player, Novak Djokovic, bought a 9th-floor condo in the building in 2019 and sold it earlier this month, according to property records, less than 2 weeks before the deadly collapse. Peter Daiga, the president and CEO of Associated Builders and Contractors, said that the likelihood of 87 Park construction being a significant cause in the Surfside collapse is slim, but no lead or idea should be excluded. There's probably going to be multiple things in the end that have contributed in some way or another, he said. Still, buildings are built next to buildings all the time, and it doesn't mean that they come down. He said minor shaking would not be unusual. There are plenty of other potential causes. Engineering reports and a letter from the Buildings Condo Association have documented examples of structural damage in the doomed tower, with the 2018 report warning of abundant cracking in the concrete of the building's parking garage. The residents struggle with the developer across the border became a topic of conversation in Surfside. Marta Castro, a former member of the board of Champlain Towers East, dear God, there's another one. How many are there? A nearby building built by the same developer at Champlain Towers South said she had heard many complaints from her friends and neighbors in the South building about the 87 Park construction. Everyone in town knew the problems they were facing, she told CNN. My neighbors could feel the vibration. They protested, they complained. Nothing happened. I signed so many petitions. And Ileana Salzhauer, a Surfside Town Commissioner, said she had heard from residents saying that the building was shaking all the time during construction. They were very traumatized and shook up, she said. debris, noise, and a lack of response. Records released by the town showed the Champlain South residents sent a series of outraged emails to Terra Group, one of 87 park developers, complaining about construction debris, noise, and the lack of response, and often attaching photos and videos. I am shocked and disappointed to see the lack of consideration and respect that Terra has shown our residents. Annette Goldstein, condo board member, wrote to executives with the developer. You have said you want to be a good neighbor. This is truly outrageous and quite unprecedented from what we hear from our associations in the area that have dealt with construction beside them. An executive with Terra replied that construction workers had addressed or were in the process of fixing several specific issues, including plastic foam that was clogging the Champlain pool and unsecured tarps that were noisily flapping in the wind. Please go to this article that I'm speaking of, because in this article you get an aerial view of all the buildings that are side by side. So when you get to see this view, it's not like the view you see from the ground. The aerial view is much better. In this view that I'm looking at, I get to see the front facade of Champlain South, which is no longer, and part of it's still standing. The scary part of this view is looking at the other buildings in rows, side by side. So the building that they're speaking of, 87 Park, is right next damn door. I don't even know how you say that it's in Miami, because it looks like you can just walk out, cross the grass, and go over to the building. Very weird. Nonetheless, the buildings are side by side. So please check out this article, because the aerial view is better. You get to see that the buildings are close, not like crossing the street. See, that's the thing about a view. Sometimes what you think you're seeing, you're not. This aerial view looks to me like I could walk out of the building, Champlain South, cross out of the grass and sand, and walk directly next door to any other tower building. They are all side by side. Okay. The emails released by Surfside so far don't show the residents specifically complaining to Terra, but the building shaking or bringing up the possibility of structural damage with the developer directly. Miami Beach employees responded to more than 50 noise complaints at the building's address between 2016 and 2019, most of which specified construction noise, and the developers were fined for excessive noise at least 8 times, according to city records. So, developers were fined for the excessive noise 8 times, according to city records. But there doesn't appear to have been any code enforcement cases specifically related to alleged shaking caused by construction. A Miami Beach spokesperson said Tuesday night the city is looking into many aspects of our process at all buildings to see where improvements can be made. Prieto, the former Surfside building official, did not respond to requests for comment. Miami Beach approved the 87 Park development in 2015, with the review board allowing a height increase from 60 feet to 200 feet, according to news reports at the time. As part of the approval, Terra agreed to build public walking paths from the street to the beach and pay the city $10.5 million for improvements in a nearby park and other infrastructure upgrades. In exchange, the developer took over the right of the street, the right-of-way of the street, 87 Terrace, separating the development from Champlain South, which I had just said that. They're right damn next door. Shut your mouth. So that was the exchange. I pay for this, you give me this, which is the right-of-way of a street. Joy Malakoff, who served as the Miami Beach commissioner at the time, said she hadn't heard of any complaints from Surfside residents about the construction. As far as I know, 87 Park was very carefully built, well built, and expensively built, Malakoff said. Well, interesting. Hold on one second. I'm almost done, you guys. The development had previously faced controversy over its demolition of the Biltmore Terrace Hotel, designed by well-known Miami architect Morris Lapidus, which was previously at the site. The hotel had not been protected by historic preservation rules, but Terra had originally said it would renovate the hotel and add a condo building to the property alongside it. Instead, it tore down the hotel, saying the project wasn't viable. Some community activists, too, complained of a bait-and-switch to the Miami Herald, reported at the time. Malakoff said that the hotel was in disrepair. There were some preservationists who really fought to keep it, but it was past its life, she said. Now the condo tower is amongst the priciest in the city. Its penthouse came to market in 2019 at $68 million, a price that would have been the highest paid for any condo ever sold in Florida, according to the Wall Street Journal. It eventually sold for a mere $37 million. A $10.9 million 4-bedroom condo in the building was posted on real estate website Zillow earlier this month, with photos showing an expansive view looking down on what is now a pile of ruins. Imagine that. You've paid $37 million to now look at a fallen Olympus. Shut your mouth. CNN is the source. I'm going to talk about that. Then I'm going to go into Michael Strahan. X. You see, as someone said in an article, there's probably going to be many factors that brought down Champlain Towers south. Because one, water is, you're built it on wetlands. That's first and foremost, which you know not to do. But because man thinks he knows everything, he's greedy, he wants to be right, he put the damn building up anyway because he could. Which is what most humans do, what they want, because they can. So I put it there because I could. I paid the fee, I put it up. But what you didn't bet on was Mother Nature saying, no, you cannot. Because I was here first, which is land and water. In comes the water, nowhere to go. As they said, don't build water on flat roof because it stands still. It needs to have a slope to run down, to go somewhere. But the water had nowhere to go. So imagine the parking deck, pool, the pool collapsed, which is attached to the building. Hell, the pool said, I'm done. I'm ready to lay down. And it did. It laid down. And it took the damn building with it, along with the parking garage. I can't even imagine. And I'm telling you, the video I saw the other day of the building collapsing at 1 a.m. is a sight unlike you have ever seen besides 9/11. To actually visually see a building collapsing without it being detonated is a scary sight. Because you know somebody was in that damn building sleep, awake, reading, talking, listening to music, making love, whatever the person was doing, people were doing. And now they're no longer. It is a sight beyond sights. And I can say that when I saw the buildings fall in the dark, I thought the whole damn building was gone. Some of you jumped in the live and said, oh, it's all gone, it's all gone. No, it's not. Part of that building is still standing up. So we got to ask ourselves about that. While these people are rummaging through, trying to preserve life, find life, bring out life that may be no longer, you have to think about what is still remaining attached to the debris, which is a structure. So the more you tingle-tangle around that concrete and iron looking for decedents, mementos, and such, you're still shaking and rocking the boat of what is still standing and left of Tower South. I think you know where I'm going with that. Old saying, what goes up must come down. You don't actually think of that when building a building. Indeed. You don't assume it's going to fall because man knows everything. He knows his expertise on how to build a structure. So it should not come down, but it did because man did not bet on water. And some of you can say, I didn't know water could do that. Well, if you've ever seen a tsunami, you know what water can do. We need not take you back a couple of years with the tsunami that took place overseas. When that water jumped that damn road, it's as if it had feet and hands and went to get what it thought belonged to him, which was man, woman, child, animal, earth, land. And it is the most horrific sight to see water breach up and come across land and take its occupants back out to shore with it. And I remember someone saying, a school teacher to her students, don't turn around, don't look back. They couldn't look back because there was nowhere to run, because there was no way you were going to outrun a tsunami once it jumped the road. And that is the most horrific thing I've heard about water jumping the road and taking man out. You couldn't outrun the water. And that's what people don't seem to understand about water. Beautiful as it is, it has a mind of its own, and it will take you out. That's why you don't play with water. You don't play in swimming pools, ponds, quarries, lakes, rivers, bathtubs. You can't swim, don't go in. Some have lost their lives and could swim. Water is dangerous because how it looks and what it is two different things. So who knew water seeping in for 40 years would take down a building? It ate away at its foundation. So it doesn't matter about how tall the building stood. It was what was on the bottom. What's the problem? Now you factor in someone building a building feet away, yards away, and drilling 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 for however long it took to build that building. And that was shaking a ground that was already unstable. Come on, Queen. What do I tell you the most when you watch and listen to the Queen? One thing begets another. You see, the building was already jacked because of what it was sitting on. And then the earth said, I want to play. So I'm going to come in and ease in every month and break the foundation down. And then man said, next door, I want to put a building over here. And then whatever he did to build that little box helped rattle the cage over at Tower South, which was already on shaky ground. Now, these people who live in this vicinity are going to have to be worried because some of them are going to say, well, that's an older building. Older. That's why it fell, but that ain't it. You still have to own your own shaky ground, wet land. So it doesn't matter about the materials being old. The Empire State Building materials are old. Come on, Queen. What was known as the Sears Tower, now the Willis Tower's got old material. Come on, Queen. All the buildings standing in New York are old material. Come on, Queen. All the buildings standing in Chicago are old material. Come on, Queen. So you can't use that excuse. Thank you for the super chat, baby. So you can't keep saying the materials that were used was old. Because most of the buildings standing in the state of New York are all old material. And they are still standing. Every building in the United States, damn near, has old materials, but they were not built on wet lands. If you need information for anything I've mentioned, I brought you a source inside this article. Washington Post, death toll at 16, Champlain Towers, South. Lord have mercy. CNN, for those talking about the building shaking all the time, now people playing possum about the building. Slate.com. The dream of Florida is dead. The Miami condo collapse is a crisis for the entire state. Danny Rivera was one of the first reporters on the scene of the Champlain Towers South condo collapse in the town of Surfside, Florida, not too far from Miami Beach. He's been there almost every day since, chronicling what is still technically a search and rescue mission. The death toll now stands at 12, but 149 people still unaccounted for. And Rivera says the initial shock of the event is starting to wear off, turning to grief and anger. This didn't happen for no reason, he says. Even though it came out of nowhere, in a sense, it did not come out of nowhere. There were reasons behind why this happened. On Wednesday episode of What's Next, I talked to Rivera, a reporter for the local public radio station WLRN, about the decisions that led up to the disaster, the role of climate change, and what it all means for the state of Florida. And this conversation has been condensed and edited for clarity. Mary Harris, an important thing to know about Champlain Towers South is that it's a condominium. Different people own individual units, and when repairs need to be made to the building as a whole, they've got to find a way to pay for them collectively. They elect a board to manage these kinds of decisions. All the way back 2018, the condo board retained an inspector who assessed the stability of the tower. He found a major error in the integrity of the bottom floor of the building. Residents were informed of the problem but spent years negotiating how and whether to fix millions of dollars of damage. Danny Rivera, there were structural deficiencies identified that probably went back all the way to the construction of this building. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the pool deck was built flat, which is a huge no-no. I mean, even me, as a non-construction person, knows you don't build flat. Why? You don't build flat because water accumulates on flat, and then it will seep down and cause structural damage. At least in Florida, you don't build a flat roof. You build a slope roof so that if it rains, it doesn't pool on your roof and cause leaking. But what this engineer report found is that going back to the very beginning of this building, basically, they built a concrete slab that was flat for the pool deck. And what that meant over years and decades is that water, as it accumulated from rain or from storm surges, which happened every once in a while, it was seeping down into that and causing changes at the geologic level. This was accumulating under there and causing issues on the pillars. And that the building stands on, that the whole property stands on. Do we know if residents in the building fought the repairs, said maybe this isn't necessary? We do know, actually. USA Today had a fantastic story out on Monday evening. Heartbreaking story, too, though, because it really documents over the course of the last couple of years, the condo board had been pushing for residents to get on board for these repairs, and they couldn't get people on the same page. And the longer they pushed it back, the higher the cost got. Because the repairs, it accelerates if you don't address it. And because it needed to be collectivized kind of decision, they couldn't reach that kind of decision, and they couldn't make the repairs that needed to be done. This was in addition to the fact that just having building on the beach means it's subject to harsh conditions because you have all the salt water and salt air. Right. We do know that properties that are right on the beach get more corrosion from the salt that comes from the salty air, from the salt water that intrudes every once in a while, from just harsh winds and hurricanes. But at the same time, this is a structural issue that, like I said, likely goes back to the very building of this building. And there is also the inability of the condo board to get residents on board for paying for these repairs. The funny thing about this 2018 report is that my understanding is that it wasn't required. The condo board decided to do it, and then they got this information back. It's kind of like careful what you wish for, because the engineer is basically like, you need to shore up the entire building. And then the question becomes, who's going to pay for all that? This is what the longer term story here is. You know, it's not just about one building collapse and the tragedy, although of course it is, but this is going to force a wholesale reevaluation of how these things are handled, at least in the state of Florida. Think of condo associations as like small scale socialism. You you all have ownership, stock in this thing. You make decisions about it. You have the board, which is kind of like the police bureau. No, really, it's socialism. And the thing about socialism is that when you collectively own something, you collectively make a decision about it. Well, some of those decisions are going to be very hard. And the board is elected. So if you're trying to keep your seat, you don't want to be making that expensive decision and you might avoid it. Exactly. And the big long term story we're going to be dealing with here in Florida is, should boards be given as long as the leash as they are given by the state of Florida? They have so much leeway to do what they want, and so little oversight by the state of government at any level. At any level, they're really up to their own devices. Crises bring reevaluations of things. I think now people are openly asking, should condo boards be doing all this when there is kind of an inherent conflict of interest? You know, even if you're elected, you're likely an owner in that condo. You could be putting yourself on the hook for hundreds of thousands of dollars per unit in repairs. My understanding is that the city came in, the city of Surfside, to kind of evaluate the engineer's report and give an assessment to the condo board and give their opinion. And when they did that, they kind of said that this damage isn't that big of a deal, and that might have contributed to the delay. So I agree with you that people have different incentives. But do you think the city itself is going to end up bearing any responsibility for what happened here? I do think that it's going to come into effect at some point. I mean, I don't know who to point the finger at. We'll see. But clearly the city had a role in it, all of this too. And if they weren't relaying that information with the gravity that they should have been relaying that information to the residents, then that's an issue. If they were downplaying it, that's going to be an issue. There are things coming out, but we still don't have the full picture quite yet. But the county government has launched emergency audits streamlined within 30 days of any building in an unincorporated county over 40 years old and 5 stories up. And the city of Miami is doing their own emergency audits. City of Miami Beach is doing their own things, a couple other municipalities. So the governments are reacting to this because there's a lot of fear happening because nobody wants their building to be part 2. They're trying to really identify what are the buildings that are most in crisis right now that need to be addressed immediately to stop something like this from happening again. Earlier this week, pictures came out of water damage at the Champlain Towers. They were taken just a couple of days before the collapse occurred by a pool maintenance guy who came and was looking at some of the issues you raised about the flatness of the pool deck and the fact that water was seeping down. Clearly, the guy was concerned. He said there was standing water that had seeped all the way down to the parking lot. And you just wonder, what if it had been addressed earlier? It's the big what if, and that is what's causing a panic locally. Because there is a shit ton of condo buildings here, and you can't put off these repairs that need to happen. Part of the reason people buy condos is because they're cheaper. And as soon as you start throwing in, well, you need to pay $25,000 into this repair, that scares the crap out of people. So people have been putting it off. I can't overstate how big this wrench that this is throwing into our local and regional and state economy actually. Condos and the development of condos and the mortgage brokers that help get the financing, the insurers that insure, the realtors who sell, the investors who buy and flip. If Florida has one main driver of industry, this is it. That is what we do. That is the story of Florida. And I think we're seeing a lot of anxiety about this. This is going to force a wholesale reevaluation of the very places where millions of Floridians live. So you're really talking about a situation that seems a little bit intractable, where damage is normal in some ways for these buildings because they're subject to such harsh conditions. There are inspections, but it takes a while for the condo boards to respond. Some of the time because of the incentives either way. I want to add one more thing to the mix. Can climate change potentially make some of these structural changes worse? That is the open question, especially for these buildings that really sit on the coast. I don't want to generalize too much, but we do know the buildings right on the coast that get repetitive flooding, like this area of Surfside does get high storm surge, and they have sunny day flooding, they call it. Surfside is actually the only city, to my knowledge, in the entire United States that actually has a government fund set up for relocation because of climate change. Their government has been actually very proactive about climate change, especially over the last couple of years. It's a small town, but they have actually opened up an account where they're taking some amount of dollars to put into this pot so that down the road, When Surfside becomes uninhabitable, they can actually help move people out of Surfside. So I don't want to say I'm drawing a direct line between this and climate change. I will say it's almost certainly one of the contributing factors. How long do you think you're going to be reporting on this story? Well, probably be on this for the next couple of years, just because they're still sorting through rubble right now. But there's all these audits going on about these unsafe structures or potentially unsafe structures in Miami-Dade County. What are the results of all those? We already have a shortage of inspectors and construction workers here. All these buildings that have been putting off repairs for a long time, excuse me. What happens when they all decide at the same time that they want to do work on that? The tentacles of this thing I foresee going extremely deep into everything in the state of Florida. And I mentioned earlier that condo building is our state's industry. I literally mean that. The state of Florida was basically considered a wasteland until developers figured out that they could sell the dream of Florida. I'm not exaggerating on this. Our economy over history has basically been a pyramid scheme of developers and people marketing the dream of Florida to come down to Florida. It's so beautiful. It's so carefree. Well, now we have something to care about. This is a serious thing that this tragedy has brought to the forefront, and I think we're going to be dealing with it a very long time. If you want to know the author of this article, get more news from Mary Harris every day on podcast. Slate.com is the source. Thank you all so much for joining me. I know the information is winded, but you need to have an idea of what is going on in Surfside, Florida, and what has transpired with the buildings, the people, the inhabitants, the structure damage, how long this situation has been going on, the complaints, some acting like they didn't know about it. Is the city at fault? Somebody knows about these complaints. Somebody knows something was going on with the pool, the garage, the spalling of the concrete. Somebody knew. And I got a feeling that the residents just didn't want to put the money into the building. And I know some people will say, well, don't say that. But I think basically this article is telling you that when these people got notifications of how much it was going to cost to put into repairs for this building, they bolted, they folded, they waited, they pondered a little too late. And now half of a building is in rubble with people meshed in between the iron and the concrete, sadly. Thank you for joining me. Michael Strahan's ex-wife. My. This is a sad situation. People cannot get along with one another. People fighting, feuding with each other. We have buildings falling around, down. Thank you so much, Miss Missy. Children being hurt, adults being hurt, hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, storms, fires. The earth is angry. People are angry. There's no rest for the weary. If you need verification for the next story, mlive.com is the source. Ex-wife of former Giants star Michael Strahan arrested, report says. The ex-wife of former New York Giants defensive end Michael Strahan is in a boatload of trouble, although it has nothing to do with the Hall of Famer. TMZ reports Gene Mugley was taken into custody Friday night in New York City and booked for criminal contempt. The problem? TMZ reports Mugley was arrested for violating an order of protection involving an ex who claimed she was being terrorized by the woman. According to TMZ, the ex-girlfriend is named Marianne Ayer. Yes, his ex-wife, second ex-wife, was seeing a woman, and that woman has filed a order of protection against her a while ago, and Miss Mugley violated that protection order. Shut up, Sadie. Marianne had filed legal docs in June accusing Gene of grand larceny, disorderly conduct, harassment, coercion, and forcible touching. Marianne claimed in the legal docs Gene took her son's plastic gun, which he used in a student film, and threatened her, claiming the gun was real. Marianne went on to claim Jean abused her pets by allegedly shoving and kicking her German Shepherd. Mugler previously made headlines for her custody battle with Strahan regarding the ex-couple's daughters. In March of 2020, TMZ reported Strahan accused Mugler of abusing their kids. But in November of last year, the New York Post, page 6, reported those claims were dismissed October 13th with the exes settling on a shared custody arrangement. According to court papers filed in New Hanover County, North Carolina, District Court, Strahan had been seeking custody of the girls who lived with him in New York City. Jean, who had been living with the teens in North Carolina, agreed to get an Upper West Side apartment so that the twins can attend their separate posh Manhattan private schools where they will finish out high school. The court documents say Michael, who also lives in the UWS, will split custody with Jean and their daughters, will alternate seats living with each parent, the court agreement shows. Strahan's twin daughters were born 2 years before he and Jean divorced in 2006. Strahan, a Pro Football Hall of Fame defensive end, played his entire career with the Giants from 1993 to 2007. In retirement, he became a prominent media personality. Currently, he is an analyst on Fox Sports' NFL pregame show and a co-host on ABC's Good Morning America. If you need verification for the information that I just brought to you, this is M Live. Mike Rosenstein contributed to this article. MLive.com is the source. So basically, Jean, who was Michael Strahan's second ex-wife, has been dating a woman who she's had some personal issues with, and that lady took out an order of protection against her. She violated it last week by going to her home, kicking a dog, pulling a gun out of her, a plastic gun that belonged to the woman's son. Now we hear all this. But what I had to say in my previous upload of this content, how did she get in? Now. Marianne, how did Jean get in your house? Now, don't let Queen start talking crazy, because you know I will. I'm just curious. How did Jean get in your house, Marianne? Did you not change the locks? Does she still have a key? Did she break in, or did you let her in? Because the judge is going to ask you, how did she get into your house? How did she get in? How did she forcibly touch you? How did she kick your dog? How did she pull this plastic gun on you? How did she get access to the plastic gun? Why would she steal your son's plastic gun? Did she have the plastic gun beforehand and kept it and brought it with her? Help us understand. Lord have mercy. Somebody give me a Cedrin and a fifth of Hennessy. These people have more drama than a soap opera. Who needs cable? You don't need cable. You don't even need the internet. These people are crazy out here. Crazy. Nonsense. And hello, my baby brother calling me. Yes. Oh, I know you're calling me about the Facebook post. I'm on my live. What are you doing? Yeah. Satan put up a post. I just saw the post just now. I thought, Jesus Christ. Hold on one second. Just hold on 1 second. That's my baby brother calling. I'm going to end this live. I want to thank you all for joining me, because I want to get enough rest and let my tongue rest from this long-winded information I just brought to you pertaining to the Champlain South Tower in Florida. Prayers to the victims, families. Prayers for those waiting to find out information about their loved ones in the rubble. Prayers for our first responders. Prayers for the citizens of Surfside. Prayers for anybody who's friends, neighbors of these people who have perished, and those who have yet to find location in the rubble or wherever they may be. Praying that some of these people are just somewhere else visiting. God bless all of you. Thank you, Miss Missy, for the super chat. Thank you all for donating. If you want to donate to my channel, please donate to my Cash App, $ Big Angie 129. All donations are accepted, and also to the live stream super chats. I really appreciate it. I want you all to join me later in a couple of hours. I want to do an in-depth discussion pertaining to Mr. Bill Cosby. He has been released from prison. He is home with his wife, Camille Cosby. Yes, Bill Cosby is free. I posted it to my community board with the said video. There is an actual video showing you Mr. Cosby standing on his property free, like OJ, all day. Thank you all so much for following the content, for your patience, and for listening. If you have anything you'd like to say pertaining to Mr. Bill Cosby, please post those comments on the community post. Please know that I will bring you more content as I get the information. Prayers for our children, missing children, deceased children. Prayers for Cash Garnin. Prayers for Miss Summer Wells. Prayers for, oh man, I can't even keep up. The family of Chad Carr, and now missing out of Knoxville, Tennessee, Deshina Kyle, 26 years of age. Prayers for her family. If you have any information to the location of Deshina Kyle, please call the Knoxville Police Department. Chad Carr, 32, African-American male. Both are African-American young people. Notify Anderson County Sheriff's Department, Clinton Police Department, and the FBI. You have any information, put it on my community post pertaining to the said information. I will read what you have to say if it's in relations to those said storylines. Join me later on an in-depth discussion about Bill Cosby. He's free. What you got to say about that? You like it? You love it? You hate it? What you got to say? Join the queen later. We'll drop the link. Come up. Give your opinion. Weigh in. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Talk to you guys later. Thanks for joining me. God bless all of you.